Hi dear students, we are here in the second section of Unit 10, in which we shall work on functional practice, and we shall devote the whole session to speaking about how to ask for and how to make a promise. After that, we shall go directly and work in a chart to pick up some expression that we use in making asking for promises. And then we shall work on some illustrated sentences, and by the end we shall go to your own books and work on the conversation in which we have, which is entitled "You Won't Break Your Promise," and the exercises there and the chart that we shall fill in that page, and precisely page 145. And then by the end, we shall give you some idioms speaking about difference on how to break a promise and how to keep a promise. Now let's start. Now first, let's define what do we mean by a promise in a very simple way. It's a promise is to tell someone to do something to please him. What's this something that you can do in order to please someone? For example, you can render a service or give a gift or a present, or maybe do a favor. Those are the cases in which you can get a promise, or you can ask for a promise or make a promise.
Okay, now after that short and simple definition, we shall work on some expressions that are used in asking for a promise and making a promise. Now let's start. Say, here are some expressions. Here, this is to help you if you'd like to copy it down. Here are some expressions related to promise. I make it between brackets, and then we make a chart to pick up some of these expressions, and this exercise we shall work on it all together. Now the first one, asking for a promise, and the second one, making a promise. And I have chosen to pick up just 4 for the first section and 4 for making a promise. Now let's work on them all together. When we say, for example, I promise I will, what do you think is it? Is it asking or making a promise? Of course, it's for making a promise. I say, I promise I will. That is, I will do something. Now, what about this expression? Is this a promise? Yes, it's for asking for a promise. Can I consider this as a promise? We use it, of course, for asking for a promise. And the following one, I say, you have my word. This is for making a promise. And the following one, I say, believe me, I will. This is again for making a promise. And I will, that is, this is the promise that will be done in the future. Do you promise? This is for asking for a promise. And then the following one, it's a promise. This is for making a promise. And the last one we have, do you promise? Can I consider, is this a promise? And the last one, promise me that. This is a chart of only four. We have picked up some sentences, some expressions related to promise. Asking for a promise, you can say, is this a promise? Can I consider this as a promise? Do you promise or promise me that? And for making a promise, we can say, I promise I will. You have my word. Believe me, I will. It's a promise. Now let's take some of these sentences in some situations and then use some of these expressions. Here are some illustrative sentences to clarify more the use of the expressions for asking for and making a promise. For sentence number one, let's suppose that this is a mother with her daughter. They are making promise to buy her, to take her out. Say, the daughter says, promise me that you will take me to the park if I finish all my homework. The mother, to express or to make up her promise, she says, I promise I will do. Sentence number two, we have a son with his father, and most promises are most time between parents and their kids. For example, son say, you will buy me a bike if I get good grades. Father say, you have my word, that is, I promise you. I promise I will do. This sentence is the same as this one, only we are making different, we are using different expressions. Now this is to be done, and we shall do it all together. Let's suppose that the teacher and with one of his students want to do whole class, and he says, the student who gets the highest mark, that is the one who gets the best mark in the test, will get a dictionary. Now the teacher is making a promise for his students, and one is asking for that promise, what should he say? And the teacher, to make the promise, what should he say? All right? Now let's correct this quickly. Now we say, the student who gets the highest mark in this test gets a dictionary. The student may say, is it a promise? The student, here he asks for a promise, and the teacher will say, to make things more simple, and we say, it's a promise. That is, once you get the highest grade or the highest mark, you will get a you will get a dictionary. Now let's go to the following section, and this is the last one, which will be in your books, in your students' books, on page 145. And on page 145, you have a conversation in which you won't break your promise. And here we shall underline that we shall make the difference between break a promise and keep a promise. To break a promise, that is, you don't honor your promise. You don't honor what you have promised to do. And the opposite is to keep a promise, that is to fulfill a promise. That is, once you say that you will do something, you will actually do it. Now let's read the text quickly. You know what? We are going to Spain this summer. Really? You look too surprised. Don't you believe me? No, it's not that. I'm going to Spain too. What a surprise. It is really. Well, we will meet there, won't we? Yeah, I promise. You won't break your promise. Will you? Of course I won't. Now, after reading this text, we shall fill in the chart that we have just after the text, in which we shall decide on the expressions for asking for promises and giving promises that are used in the text. Okay, now let's go on with the chart in which we answer the questions of the text. We have to fill it with the expression that appear in the text, used to ask for a promise, and we have got one which is you won't break your promise, will you? And you can notice that in the text, in the conversation that you have in front of you. And then one expression is used to make a promise, which is I promise, which is said by I promise, which is said by Annie. And the last one, expressing surprise. What's a surprise? And let's forget about surprise because it's a part of another lesson. All right? Now let's go to the exercise which comes right after the chart of comprehension, which follows the conversation. Now here, a conversation between Ilma and her father. Look that I've been top of my class. Father says, what a surprise. I'll buy you a new mobile phone. Does that please you? Super. And here she will ask for a promise. She may say, for example, is this a promise? Okay. And the father will say, of course, to make a promise, he may say, and we use one of the expressions we have already used in the chart at the beginning of the lesson. You have my word, which means simply, I promise that I will do, that I will buy you a mobile phone. Now let's go to the second conversation between Ilma and Leila. Tom Cruise will attend the Marrakesh Cinema Festival. Great news. I try to go and see him. And now here Leila is going to ask for promises. Can I consider that as a promise? That is to say, is it a promise? Simply said, is it a promise? Can I consider that a promise? Yes, we say it's a promise. To make it too simple, and she can say, you have my word. These are exchangeable and have the same meaning.